One more talk before a break, and who do we have here? Just one quick note on the bottom of your program. There's all kinds of sponsors that we've been thanking throughout the day, and RCAC and Chugach Alaska Corporation and Coast Pizza and Lazy Otter and so many others. So as you're looking at your program, take a glance down, and there are so many folks that help the Prince William Sound Stewardship Foundation put this together. There's a survey that's really going to help us to be informed how this symposium went and inform next year's symposium. So please hit up the survey if you can. And then our next speaker is someone that I've had the pleasure to work with, Jessie Sheldon, was the 2024 Chugach National Forest Voices of the Wilderness Artists and Residents. And we're super excited to have you here, Jessie. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jessie Sheldon, and I'm really honored to be here today as part of this symposium. I'm going to be talking about a really special art and stewardship program that I got to participate in called Voices of the Wilderness. I have a clicker right here. Voices of the Wilderness is a statewide residency program where different wilderness areas across Alaska each host an artist. And in 2024, I was lucky enough to be selected as the artist in residence for the Nellie Juan-College Fiord Wilderness Study Area. So over the course of a few weeks, weather permitting, I got to go out in Prince William Sound alongside wilderness managers Barbara, Tim, and Ellen to participate in a bunch of incredible stewardship projects and soak up as much of the Sound's magic as possible with the goal of translating that into an art piece. A little bit about my background coming into this residency. I worked for several years in the southern Sierra Nevada conducting wilderness character monitoring. What is this, you might ask? It's a way to both quantitatively and qualitatively describe a wilderness, summarizing its environmental history, human history, and geologic history by weaving together both narratives and data. And the goal of all this is twofold: to get at the heart of what makes a specific wilderness area unique, and to use this as a baseline to monitor how a wilderness is changing over time. In addition to wilderness work, I'm an artist. My main mediums are printmaking, murals, and illustration, and my art is primarily ecology and landscape focused. So a big part of why I was so thrilled to participate in this residency is it is a perfect blend of my professional interests and a really unique way to bring these two worlds together. So the Nellie Juan-College Fiord Wilderness Study Area, or WSA, was designated in 1980 and encompasses about 2 million acres in western Prince William Sound. And 2 million acres is a lot. So it contains many different biomes like coastal hemlock forest, tidewater glaciers, mountains, lakes, and a super dynamic intertidal zone. During my residency, this meant stewardship projects across the Sound in different parts of these ecosystems. Our first project was in partnership with the Prince William Sound Stewardship Foundation. I got to work with wilderness staff and a team of volunteers to do trail maintenance around the Schrode Lake Cabin, which is a popular public use cabin that visitors to the WSA can reserve. The second project I got to help with was marine debris removal and some campsite inventorying on some of the outer islands in the Sound. And last but certainly not least, I got to work with wilderness staff and Alaska Geographic youth to hand remove invasive European black slugs, and scouring the beach and forest with a bunch of middle schoolers for any signs of slug was definitely a highlight of the residency. I did some field sketching in the evenings with the late light, but my main objective during this residency was to just be in sponge mode and soak up and observe as many different aspects of the wilderness study area as possible. So, guided by my question from my previous wilderness work, what makes a wilderness unique? My takeaway from this stewardship work and that time in the field was just how complex of an ecosystem exists here. Between the sea, sky, ice, and forests, and both above and below the water, there is so much happening with all these different biomes and the ecotones in between them. So my next challenge was then how to translate all that into an art piece. There we go. So I had a college assignment years ago to illustrate a recipe. So this is my illustration of a rhubarb ginger lemon jam recipe. And this project has long stayed with me because I was surprised by how much information you could get across with this kind of narrative illustration, or it's like kind of a comic strip-like graphic. So I thought that I would borrow this recipe format as a way to illustrate the different ingredients that I'd observed in Prince William Sound and convey kind of how they interact. So next I'm going to talk through each ingredient in my Prince William Sound soup, and I'll have the reference photos from the residency on the right and a time lapse of my draft digital design on the left. Now eventually all these end up in a linoleum print, but this just gives you a little peek behind the scenes at my design process. So on my first day of the residency, I got to go out with Phillips Cruises on their 26 Glacier tour, and one of our first stops was at this epic waterfall in Passage Canal, where there was a kittiwake colony. And I got all set up with the ecology field books on the boat, so I got to learn about species as we were cruising along, and I learned that kittiwakes are typically one of the first gull species to find prey, and then when they start their feeding frenzy, other bigger gulls will come in and kind of piggyback on the action. So this was an incredible spot, and just the whole cliff face was moving with thousands of birds. So yeah, this panel was ecosystem snippet number 1 with the black-legged kittiwake. I don't know. Panel 2 was all about the ice. So I really wanted a panel that captured the wiggly stripes of a tidewater glacier. So I illustrated Smith Glacier in College Fiord here. And I thought I'd tie this panel in with marine mammals as well. On that glacier cruise the first day, we got to go by a little rocky outcrop that was just covered in bellowing stellar sea lions. And that was a great opportunity to get a closer look at these critters. And since carving this panel, I learned that stellar sea lions are actually more often prefer hanging out on rocky outcrops, and it's more harbor seals that haul out on the ice. So another opportunity for me for continued learning. And in the next panel, let's see if I can, there we go. I wanted to explore the intertidal zone. This is such an important ecotone in the Nellie Juan-College Fiord WSA, where a lot of different biomes interact. One day during the residency, when we met up with Alaska Geographic students in Ishiami Bay, we got to see a black bear wandering down to the water's edge to grab a salmon carcass. And we were separated by a little stream, but it was pretty special to see at such close range. And the dominant seaweed here on the beaches was rockweed, which creates a ton of hiding places and microhabitat for all the little critters that live in the intertidal zone. So this panel was all about honoring that terrestrial and marine interaction with the salmon carcass and the bear tracks in this kind of seaweedy, barnacly zone. The next panel is all about loons in action. I had a really magical morning one day at Fiord Lake where I took out the John boat by myself and posted up on one of the little rocky islands on the lake with some art supplies. And I ended up not even touching my sketching stuff and just observing these 2 loons for about an hour. And they were just, casually cruising the waters around the islands together. And after watching them for a long time, it became pretty easy to anthropomorphize them, but one would be on the lookout above the water, and then the other would dive down, and it would reemerge, and then it would give kind of the go-ahead signal to the other one, and then they'd both dive down together. So it was really special to observe, and I knew then that I wanted my final piece to include an homage to these two. And last but certainly not least, the fish. While unfortunately I did not pack a snorkel for this residency, I have had the privilege of doing a lot of fisheries-related work elsewhere in Alaska. So I have an abundance of fish photos of king sockeyes and silvers. This photo is from Fish and Game Monitoring out in Bristol Bay from the previous summer. So even though the underwater world was not directly observed during my time here, the nutrients of the marine ecosystem are such a critical foundation for so many of the species within this wilderness study area. I really wanted to include it. So this next part was my favorite part of the design process. I had all these individual panels, but I wanted to make them meld together and have them interact because that's the way it works in the wilderness. So I tweaked the panels so that they were kind of in conversation with one another, like the striations of the rock in one panel kind of feed into the currents of another, which then melds with the sky of another panel. So this wrapped up the digital design process, and next I'm going to share a little bit about the technical process of making this a multi-block linoleum print. So I used a clothes iron to heat transfer a printed copy of my digital image onto two different 12 by 18 pieces of linoleum, one for the black ink and one for the teal ink. And the key part of this process is making sure that the two blocks line up perfectly, and in printmaking that's called registration. This was the first print I pulled when I finished carving the blocks with just a random tester ink, and unfortunately they did not quite line up. So using this registration board to line up the blocks, I ended up cutting a linoleum shim and attaching it to the side of the black block to move it over just a few millimeters, enough so that it lined up perfectly with the teal block. And then once I was confident in the registration, I mixed my inks. And here's the full spread of the setup. I don't have a printing press, so each print I made is with my most economical printmaking tool, a spoon. Does the job. And there we go. And here's the final print. I found that making art of your surrounding environment is such a great way to get to know and understand an ecosystem better. Like, you don't really think about way the speckles on a sea star organize themselves or how the markings on a loon's wings are arranged until you have to recreate them by hand. And bringing it back to the rhubarb ginger jam recipe, this is my final version of the Nellie Juan-College Fiord Wilderness Studies Area's ingredients and how they interact and how that composes these unique ecosystems that occupies over 2 million acres. So from spending all this wonderful time in this incredible ecosystem and working at the intersection of art and wilderness, I've thought a lot about the relationship between art and wilderness management. I think it's pretty obvious to me what wilderness can bring to art. I think it's just about the best source of inspiration, ideas, beauty, and complexity. But I wanted to share a little bit about what I think art can bring to wilderness management. So number one, which is I think a lot of what my piece focused on, is that if wilderness character monitoring aims to understand what makes a wilderness or wilderness study area unique, I think art is the perfect vehicle for highlighting and celebrating the unique aspects of a wilderness. And as described earlier, I wanted to highlight all those complex interactions between biomes, and I think art is an incredible tool to do that visually. Oh, and I forgot, this is a video here of an epic splash that I got to see. Number two, Documentation of a wilderness or a wilderness study area, whether in reports, data sets, or art, provides a baseline to assess how a place is changing over time. Here are a bunch of pieces from other artists who have done this residency. And all these pieces, as well as the ones that I couldn't fit onto this slide, are snapshots of a certain place at a certain time. And all of these places are going to change. And third, art helps tell a more complete story of a place or an event, in addition to data sets and reports. So these next two slides came from a fellow artist and hydrologist, Ben Siebers. I saw in a presentation he gave on art and science, and I thought they were really powerful, so I'm going to share those with you all today. This is 2005 hydrology data from Hurricane Katrina, and it certainly tells a story, and you can learn a lot about this event through these tables and graphs. Art also tells a story, one that's hard to convey with just numbers. This painting is by Alfranco Lee II, called Nightmare Katrina. And there's so much that you can learn and feel from this image that goes beyond what you can glean from a data set. So in our never-ending collective effort to document and understand the world around us, I think together, art, science, and data can tell a more complete story of an event or a place, and I think art plays a critical role in helping share the story of a wilderness. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you to Barbara, Tim, and Ellen for the wonderful field time, and especially Barbara for coordinating this program. And thanks to Chugach National Forest and the Prince William Sound Stewardship Foundation for making this really incredible residency possible. And happy to answer any questions if there's time, and I've got my prints in the back if you want to come check them out.
Are there questions for Jessie?
Yeah.
So you have beautiful prints, by the way. Did you do any land-based art also, or just marine scenes?
Yeah, I did some. Okay, so you can see in this photo here, actually, I was sketching an island, and my watercolors never dried, so I just closed my notebook and completely ruined the painting. So I learned a little bit about what mediums work in this environment, yeah, I think I was pretty focused on the intertidal zone and the marine environments, because that's, I feel like, what it really contributes to the character of this area. And yeah, I also like species, birds and fish that are less confined by gravity, because then compositionally you can kind of put them wherever you want. So I like drawing birds and fish.
There's a question from online. They say, incredible print. Is there a place for the public to purchase a print copy?
I don't really have a great setup, but if you would like to buy a print, don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I've got a bunch in the back here too.
One more question from the room or online?
For the carving process, what was that like? How did that compare to the drawing process? And how much time overall did it take you to produce that print?
I should have tracked how long it took. It took a long time. The carving process, it's pretty meditative, because at that point you're not making any design decisions. I use a material that's actually a little bit softer than traditional linoleum, so it's easier. It's like a little more buttery and easy to carve. But yeah, I think it's my favorite part of the process.
Barbara, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Jessie. That was a wonderful presentation, and I just wanted to share with everyone that Jessie has been selected by Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve as their artist in residence through the Voices of the Wilderness Artist Residency Program this summer. So really excited to see what inspires you in Southeast Alaska and what you come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
We have a short break coming up. We're going to get back together at 2:15, right?